Welcome to GAPS 101 podcast. My name is Monica Holland. I am certified GAPS coach and certified nutritional therapist. And today I'm interviewing Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who is a medical doctor, neurologist, neurosurgeon, nutritionist, and she's also author of many books, as well as the creator of the GAPS protocol. So many people already benefited from the GAPS protocol. But there is a group of people who perhaps have more damaged gut or more complex health issues, and they need to go even deeper and they need to remove even more foods, especially plant matter. And for those people, Dr. Natasha, you created No Plant GAPS protocol. So today I would love to talk about the story behind No Plant GAPS and look at some of the recoveries, and obviously clear out some of the most common concerns and maybe misconceptions about following animal-based diet. So welcome, Dr. Natasha. I'm really excited to have this chat with you today. And I would love to hear the story about how you actually developed No Plant GAPS protocol and who can actually benefit from that protocol.
Thank you, Monica. I'm delighted to be here. I'm sure this course will be tremendously successful. It's a very much needed information, very much needed course. I came across a group of children, some, don't know now, 10 years ago or so, a few years ago, who contacted me asking to help their babies. The babies were diagnosed with a condition called FPIES. It's food protein induced enterocolitis syndrome. It's quite a mouthful, and that was a fairly new diagnosis at the time, and now they've got various variations of that diagnosis with different names. But in essence, what it is, we have a baby, a newborn baby, breastfed, exclusively breastfed in many cases, vomiting diarrhea. The child is not able to digest even the breast milk. The child is losing weight and not developing physically or mentally properly. So the doctors do tests and they find that the child is allergic to all protein on the planet. So at that point, if the parents follow the mainstream route, the breastfeeding stops. It's replaced by artificial formula, usually made out of soya and other ingredients, which are just basically broken down to single amino acids. And these children have a very poor outcome if they follow the mainstream route. Many die, majority develop severe disabilities, mental and physical. It's just a terrible situation. So these parents in desperation were looking for what to do, and many of these mothers have already changed their own diets to a GAPS diet, very strict GAPS diet. Nothing happened, the child is not recovering, and just try to breastfeed. So I knew through my experience and the experience of other GAPS practitioners, we work together, we share our experiences, that plant matter is difficult for human beings to digest. And the more the digestive system is damaged, the less we can tolerate plant matter. That is why on the first stage of the introduction diet, the GAPS introduction diet, we have very few plants. And we have plants which have the minimum amount of fiber, and we cook them very well to make them more digestible. We ferment them as well to make them more digestible, and often we ferment them and then we cook them. So, but even the first stage of the introduction diet wasn't enough for these babies. So what we started doing, I suggested to remove all plant matter altogether, since I knew that these babies had a very damaged digestive system, extremely damaged. So we removed all plant matter. The babies started consuming meat stock. They started consuming fat from that meat stock initially. Then we started blending gelatinous parts that we made the meat stock with into that stock, making it thicker and thicker. Then we introduced raw egg yolks. We introduced kefir to these babies, and no plants at all of any description. And we started getting success. Obviously, all of these babies were already on a synthetic formula. And once the child started eating and we started getting some success with these babies. Diarrhea stopped, vomiting stopped, or maybe these things continued to a degree, but the child calmed down, started sleeping, started putting some weight on, which is important. Then we were able to gradually remove the formula. And once the formula was removed, that's when the vomiting and diarrhea truly stopped. The formula was causing trouble. And the child started really putting weight on and started developing. We now have quite a large cohort of these babies who have recovered fully, no disabilities of any description, beautiful children, mentally normal, physically normal, they're developing beautifully, these children. And they were on this no plant diet where we haven't touched a leaf, a speck of any vegetable, fruit, anything out of plant kingdom at all, for 4, 5, 6, sometimes even longer years. And they were thriving, these children. And at different stages, we tried to introduce vegetable matter from tiniest amounts. We would try to ferment it first, maybe courgette without the skin, without seeds, ferment it first, and then cook it very well, the tiniest amount in meat stock. And in a proportion of these children, it would return diarrhea. It would still cause irritation. So the hardest thing for us was to introduce plant matter. We had to go very, very slowly, very, very patiently for these patients. And at some point, they would tolerate these vegetables. But then something happens. They catch a virus, or there's a stressful period of time, or there's some pressure on them at school, or something else. Stress does drain nutrients out of us, and it does put a large burden on the body. And they would relapse. And we had to go back to no plant again. So that taught me several lessons. One lesson was that human beings can live without plants perfectly well. We do not need plants to thrive. We do not need 5 a day, 7 a day, or whatever it is, the current number that is being recommended. So we can perfectly well live on purely animal foods and recover from all kinds of illnesses. And the second point is that the more damage the digestive system, the less plants we can tolerate. Then, as I was working with these HFPI's children, I was contacted by several parents with children with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. So I did the same thing with those children with great success. Number of severely mentally ill patients have chosen to follow this protocol and are doing very well. And many of them are still eating no plants. They're still living on a purely animal diet. And that's been now many, many years. They're doing very well. And they don't want to reintroduce plants because every time they try them, they relapse. They feel worse, these people. So that's how the no plant GAPS diet was developed. And with every patient, it's a learning curve. We learn more and more facts and more different nuances of the whole thing. And I've described this diet in the Blue Book, Gut and Physiology Syndrome. Since then, I have met many people from all over the world who had no consultations with me or anybody else. They just read the book. That's the book. And they're following it. There is a whole following around the world now of people who follow the no plant GAPS diet. Many of them started maybe with carnivore diet or primal diet. There are various varieties now of diets where people don't eat plants at all. They just live entirely on animal foods. But what these people find that it's not enough for them, that they need to pay attention to the state of their digestive system and they need to heal it. And that's what the GAPS diet does. Not only it removes all plants and gives you the proper nourishment and rebuilds your body out of quality materials, but on top of that, it heals your connective tissue. And your gut is part of that connective tissue. So not only digestive system gets healed, all your connective tissue gets healed. Your joints, the structure of your bones, the structure of your muscles, your fascia, your skin, everything in the body gets healed because connective tissue is the biggest tissue in the human body. So that's the history of this diet.
It's so wonderful to learn the story behind how you develop no plant GAPS, Dr. Natasha, and it's so reassuring that you already have so much clinical evidence that you tested it on a group of children with HFPI's, with Crohn's, with ulcerative colitis, and they've actually not only recovered, but they thrive without plant matter for so many years. And I think many people have that misconception or perhaps some fears that, you know, we need to consume plant matter to thrive and to be healthy. I am one of the examples. I'm one of your miracles there. And I'm one of those people who've tried a magical pill and done no plant gaps diet. I've done it 3 times so far. I must say, for me, it was fantastic recovery. I came from a life-threatening stage of Crohn's, over 200 different symptoms, and to the thriving and bubbly and happy person I am today. So thank you for giving me my life, Dr. Natasha, and I will be very grateful forever. And I also
thank you. You look beautiful, darling.
Thank you. It's all the animal fat I eat. But also I'm seeing magic and wonderful recoveries when I work with clients. Lots of people with Crohn's disease, people with ulcerative colitis, IBS, SIBO, severe diseases like schizophrenia, and lots of people with autoimmunity. Sometimes we see autoimmunity is going away within a matter of 6, sometimes 9 months, and that's just miraculous. Especially those people who've tried everything. They've tried other diets, they've tried other protocols, they've tried Western medical route. Nothing is working. I think no plant gap is that magical pill, if we can call it that way. But obviously, as much as it's so powerful, so healing, and so great, I wanted to talk about the elephant in the room and focus on some of the concerns people may have around, consuming animal-based diet. So one of the things which I am noticing is, especially around people who are supporters of animal-based diet. So they eat meat, they eat a high-fat diet, but they exclude, for instance, fish or chicken or pork because they claim this type of meat are quite high in hormones, on antibiotics used, or other sort of toxicity, as well as obviously when we think about fish, there may be heavy metal toxicity. So what are your thoughts about it, Dr. Natasha? Should people who follow no plant gap avoid those meats?
We always try to source the best quality, of course. We want, the first thing any GAPS person should do is abandon supermarkets. I can't stop repeating this to people. I know this sounds like a very unusual thing to do, because people just got so used to buying everything in shops and supermarkets. We have to abandon supermarkets, because supermarkets are stocked by industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture is all about profit. Huge numbers of toxic chemicals are used. The crops are grown on exhausted soils. So you're eating products which are full of toxins and have a low nutritional value. And when it comes to animals and plants too, you're eating cruelty, you're eating greed, you're eating the energy of destruction, the energy of suffering, and poisons on top of that. So you want to go and find real farmers. Every country, every area in the world has these people. They're everywhere, they exist, these people. They're grassroots people, they love their land, they love their animals, they love their birds, they love their plants. They would never spray chemicals on their land, they would never feed their animals with anything toxic or poisonous. So you find these people. The first place to go to if you live in a city is to go to a farmer's market. And meet these people, get their contact details and ask them, can I visit your farm? A good farmer like that will have nothing to hide. He'll be delighted to welcome you to his farm, to come and visit, to see what he's doing, to show you everything, to explain everything. And once you found these people that you trust, and you can look in the eye of this farmer, and we're human beings, we have intuition. Intuition is 100% correct. It's far more correct than what this is giving you, right? So look in the eyes of this person. How do you feel about this person? Can you trust this person? If you feel that this is a proper person that can be trusted, buy your food from these people. Yes, it's more effort, of course, and it's much more difficult than pushing a trolley around the supermarket in the evening. But every weekend you get in the car and you go and drive and you get your weekly supply of your meats and your milk and your eggs and vegetables, whatever else you need. And that will last you a week. So you don't have to run to shops. You've got everything at home. All it takes is having a good freezer in the house, a big freezer somewhere where you can fit it in your apartment or house in the city. And meat you can buy in bulk. If you buy half a pig, if you buy a quarter of a cow, if you buy a whole lamb, the butcher will chop it up for you. Make sure to tell them not to throw anything away. You want everything. You want the bones, the feet, the neck, the head, the tail, and the organs. You want everything cleaned up and put into bags. And then you don't have to think every day what meat you're going to buy, what meat you're going to eat today. You just go to your freezer and get out what looks at you, you know. So get chickens which have not been fed soya. That's very important. That means you want a farmer who makes his own feed for the chickens, who does not buy commercial bags, because all commercial feed for animals and birds is made out of genetically modified soya, wheat, barley, and chemicals. Ingredients are the same. And whether it's for pigs, for chickens, for turkeys, for anything, you know, any animal. So it's very important that they make their own food, that they don't use soy for feeding their birds. Those farmers are rare. So once you found them, you buy 20 chickens when there is a chance. Whatever you can fit into your chest freezer in your garage or wherever you've got it. And then you supply it with proper quality chickens. And you want not just the body, you know, wrapped for roasting. No. You want feet, you want necks, you want heads, you want giblets, organs. You want the whole thing, basically the whole thing, because the necks, the heads, the feet, the giblets, they make the best soup. They make the best meat stock, and meat stock is the staple in the GAPS diet. So it's very important to do that. With fish, it's important to buy wild fish and not to go for large fish, carnivorous fish in particular, such as tuna and swordfish and shark and things like that. The best, you know, the best bet are herring, mackerels, and sardines. And a shellfish is also good if it is wild shellfish, not farmed. So that's the important thing. Obviously, if you have a large amount of mercury in your body, and that has been confirmed, if you have mercury toxicity in the body, you may struggle with seafood. Because we've polluted this planet to such a degree, practically all seafood contains mercury, some amounts of mercury. But again, that's not guaranteed. What we found that even in one shoal of fish, there are some fish which are clean, and there are some which are contaminated. So you can never know, basically. Fish is delicious and fish is nice. It gives variety to the diet. So unless there is a real reason for removing this sort of thing, there's no reason. There's no point to remove it. It's nice to keep it in. The important thing about the fish is the most nourishing parts are the skin, the heads, the skeleton, and the tail and the fins. So descale the skin so you can eat it. And making soup from small fish, in particular, you can buy sprats, you can buy small fish, and whitebait and sardines make lovely bouillon, make lovely meat stock with small fish. So there's no need to do that. With pork, there is something about pork that we're not quite sure, but what a limited research shows that pork needs to be salted or marinated before you consume it. That's very important, because there is something in pork that causes unhealthy changes in the human blood of a person who eats the pork. Whether it is healthy people, not healthy people, these were healthy volunteers who had this, who were involved in this research. But when you salted the pork for a couple of hours before them, or if you salted it and added a handful of fermented vegetables or brine from fermented vegetables, and just let the pork marinate, this unhealthy effect on human blood disappears. So it is important to treat pork that way. Pork mince is the easiest. You just mix it with salt and a handful maybe of some fermented vegetables that you have, or brine from fermented vegetables. But of course, not on the no plant GAPS diet. We're talking about no plant GAPS diet, so just plain salt. You want natural salt, not the salt from supermarkets. You want natural salt, unprocessed, either sea salt or mountain salt, Himalayan from the mines. Himalayan crystal salt is the most available one. And you just mix the pork with salt and leave it for a couple of hours at a room temperature to marinate. and then you cook it, and this effect will disappear. So there is no need to be afraid of pork. Pork is very nourishing, particularly pork skin, because pigs are cleaned properly. So it's the only animal, apart from poultry, where we keep the skin on. The skin is wonderful. It's rich in collagen. Pork skin soup is one of the most healing soups in the world. When you boil the skins, and with some bones and some joints in there, and then you blend the whole thing, you blend the skin and you consume that skin with the stock, that will heal your digestive system quicker than anything else.
And Dr. Natasha, thank you for reassuring everyone and all the listeners who have been hesitating to consume one of those type of meats, so fish, chicken, pork, because we don't want to miss out on all the benefits those meats are bringing. You know, fish is so good for our brain, for our nervous system, for our eyes. Pork is great for lots of vitamin B1, again, wonderful for nervous system and so on. And I come from Poland, and I do remember my grandma and then my mom, and now I do repeat the same kind of behaviors in the kitchen. We always prepare the pork the way you just described. We never, let's say, cooked pork straight away when it came from the butcher. So we were doing it without even understanding the science behind it and the reasons why we're doing. So that's how it's passed through the generations from, you know, grandma to mother to daughter and so on. And I think we should continue spreading the word that let's don't avoid those foods because they are so healing. If somebody can tolerate, if somebody can tolerate them, there's no reason to avoid them. Just focus on a clean source and know how to prepare it. But there is one thing about one type of meat which I wanted to touch base with you, Dr. Natasha, is beef, because there is quite a big movement now of many people consuming beef, water, and salt diet only. And obviously, some of them they have some improvements or recoveries, and that's great. But I work with many people who try that diet, or they even cannot touch beef because for some reason they get really strong reaction. And I was one of those people. I couldn't tolerate beef when I started. So can you tell us what is it about beef that people are reacting to it?
There are two issues here. One is that in the West, when you say the word meat, people see lean steak. They see pure muscle of the animal with everything else trimmed off, removed. That is not what meat is, because in a traditional society, and you've mentioned in Poland that traditional knowledge is still passed through generations, which is wonderful because traditional knowledge is always reasonable and rational. People through experience, through centuries, have learned some facts, and these facts are true. That's the truth. Maybe they don't know the reason behind these facts, but they definitely know that this works. So in traditional society, when you say the word meat, people don't see pure muscle of the animal. They see a whole chunk of the animal with everything in it. If it's pork, there's skin on top, there's fat, there's arteries, there's veins, there's nerves, there's a bone in the middle, there's a bone marrow, and all of it is cooked and all of it is consumed. So when people start going on a carnivore diet or primal diet in the West, and they just go to supermarkets and buy lean muscle of the animal, and that's not going to work, because through traditional experience in every culture around the world, it has been learned that you can't eat pure muscle, lean, without getting ill. It'll make you ill. Even a healthy person can get ill. It's important to consume fat with it, and connective tissue, and everything else that there is in that animal, particularly organs. So that's very, very important. That's the first point. The second point is many people became allergic to beef because beef, cattle altogether, have been the most commercialized and hybridized animal in the Western world. Somewhere in the 60s and 70s, the scientists in Holland were given a task to create an animal that will give more milk because they wanted more profit. So they've taken animals, cattle, which had a pituitary adenoma, had a brain tumor, which was producing too much growth hormone. And because of this pathology that these animals had, they were producing much more milk than a normal cow was producing. And from these sick animals, they bred new cattle called Holstein Friesian. These are enormous cows, black and white cows, which produce 3 times more milk than a natural cow is able to produce. These animals are Frankensteins. They cannot live on grass alone. They are sick from the start. 75% of them have mastitis at any time. That's the research. They all have arthritis. They have tumors. They die from cancer usually, and they become infertile after a few years of life, these animals, depending on how they fed and where they live. So these are unhealthy animals. How can an unhealthy animal give you healthy milk? That's a Frankenstein milk. Vast majority of all dairy sold in Western supermarkets come from these Frankenstein cows. This is Frankenstein dairy. So they sell you the milk from these cattle, the cream, the cheese, the butter, everything comes from these animals. And because these animals are sick and their milk is sick, it causes illnesses. I have a stack full of papers which demonstrate that dairy causes every disease on the planet, every chronic disease, including cancer, infertility, autoimmunity, allergies, everything. So the population of the Western world got sensitized to this Frankenstein dairy. And dairy comes from cattle. And milk is made out of similar proteins that the muscle of these animals is made, the meat of this animal is made. So the allergies cross-react, people start cross-reacting to the meat. So if you have been consuming this Frankenstein dairy for years in your life, you have likely developed an allergy to their meat as well. That is why so many people have problem with beef. The problem with beef, they cannot tolerate it. It takes about 6 months for the human body to cleanse out all the debris of this Frankenstein dairy and Frankenstein meat, commercial beef. So after that, we have the dairy introduction structure in the GAPS nutritional protocol for a person who has these kind of reactions to dairy. We will start with pure dairy fat, no proteins at all, pure fat. We see how that goes, then we start adding a little bit of protein in the form of butter, and so we go. That's the dairy introduction structure for that group of people who react. And I would do the same with the meat. I would give your body at least 6 months to cleanse out all the debris of commercial beef, commercial Western Frankenstein beef out of your system. And then see, in the meantime, find real natural breeds of cattle. And this cattle needs to be on grass because Mother Nature created cows to eat grass, not grain, not soya, not chemicals, not being in some prison where they don't see the light of day and never see the sun and eat these concoctions. Cows need to be on pasture, on grass, all year round, pretty much. And the pasture needs to be about 60 varieties of grasses and herbs in a mixture, organic, natural, without any chemicals or fertilizers sprayed over that pasture. We have plenty of farmers like that in every country in the Western world who have this kind of cattle, this cattle is truly grass-fed, because the label grass-fed in the supermarket is a lie approved by Western governments. These animals are not grass-fed. These animals never see the pasture. They sit in those prisons while the farmer goes and plows their pasture, seeds some hybrid monoculture grass, feeds it with chemicals. Then he harvests that monoculture hybridized grass, which is not natural grass, hauls it into that prison and feeds it to the cattle. And this procedure allows him to call his meat grass-fed. That is the grass-fed label in the supermarket you're buying. That's not what we're looking for. You cannot trust any labels in a supermarket. You have to abandon supermarkets. Find real farmers, see that cattle, see what breeds they are, research that subject, and get yourself proper natural beef and proper natural raw milk from real Jersey cows or Guernsey cows or any other dairy, natural dairy breed, from cows which are on pasture, on organic pasture, without any chemicals under the sunlight. And you will find that your body will react very differently to these products.
Hi, just a quick note. As I continue to provide you with free content, I am reminded of the power of community and sharing. If you find value in what you hear, I kindly ask you to share this video with your family, with your friends, and with other community members. So let's join hands in spreading the knowledge and benefits of no plant gaps, detox modalities, and healing. And remember, if you are eager to explore further, our online training is just a click away. And I absolutely agree with you, Dr. Natasha. It's so important to make sure that we actually source the traditional breeds of cows. And one of my local farms, I actually love going there because they have pictures of every single cow with their name, and you see whether you're buying something from a Guernsey or Jersey cow, and they are very transparent. So kind of like circling back to your comment before, that those farmers who do not have anything to hide, they will be so transparent and welcoming you to their farm, so we can actually go see animals. And this farm, one of the farms I go to, I love the fact that you can actually see the pictures of the cows and the names. And for the listeners who are thinking about learning more about their introduction structure, Dr. Natasha describes it very precisely, very well in that yellow book, Gut and Psychology Syndrome. So please do make sure that you do have a copy of this book and learn more about it. So, Dr. Natasha, you obviously created the No Plant Gaps protocol, where meat stock is the main hero here, and then you recommend introducing animal-based foods one by one in a very specific order to achieve deeper healing. Some of the carnivore doctors, they claim that we don't need to drink meat stock, because when we eat meat, our digestive juices are going to extract all of the amino acids, are going to extract collagen, are going to extract all the nutrients and healing compounds in order to heal and seal the gut. Can you please explain to us, to our listeners, why drinking meat stock is so crucial to heal and seal the gut, and why eating meat may not be enough?
The biggest organ in the human body is the connective tissue. It's made out of collagen, elastin, and other tough proteins which hold your body together. They're elastic, these proteins. So your skin is largely collagen, your digestive system, every mucous membrane is largely collagen. The skeleton of your skeleton, the skeleton of your bones, the structure of your bones is collagen. So when you have osteoporosis, it's not lack of calcium you've got a lack of collagen, because your bone is made out of lattice of collagen. Rather than, calcium is just, the bones are like bookshelves. The shelving is made out of collagen. Calcium, magnesium, boron, and other minerals are books that are standing on those shelves. So when you have osteoporosis, it's the shelving that's broken. You have no shelving, you have a lack of shelving. So the books have nowhere to stand, they just fall off. That's why you lose calcium and you lose other minerals. But you can be pumping as much calcium as you like. If the shelving is still broken, those books will not stand there. They will not be absorbed by your bones. So collagen is the basis of your bone structure. Your joints are largely made out of collagen. All the ligaments, the capsule of the joint, the liquid inside, the surfaces of the bones are covered by collagen. And your fascia, this is the tough tissues and tough layers of sheaths, like big sheets that hold every muscle in its capsule, every organ in its capsule, that divides different compartments of the body. Your abdominal cavity, your back has huge amounts of these structures. And if you try to chew collagen, any of these tissues, raw or cooked slightly, 3 minutes on each side, like you do with a steak, you will not be able to even chew it. It is so tough. It's impossible to even chew. It's difficult to even cut these tissues with a sharp knife. You have to cook them in water for 3 hours, 2 hours, to make them soft enough to even chew these tissues. In order for us to maintain our physical structure, we need lots and lots of collagen every day, because human body renews itself all the time. Every cell in your body has a short life. Some cells, such as the enterocytes that line your gut wall, only live a few days. They only live a couple of days. They work very hard, they get old very quickly, they die, and they get shed off. So the body has to constantly give birth to trillions of new baby cells to replace the dying cells, the cells that are being removed and shed off. And if you have any toxicity or any disease or autoimmunity or inflammation going in your body, then far more of those cells are dying every day, being damaged and being removed. You're losing your tissues. Huge amounts of your tissues, you're losing far more than a healthy person loses on a daily basis. So you have to replenish these tissues all the time. And because the majority of the structure of your body is collagen, and these collagenous tough tissues, they need to be replenished the most. That is why in every traditional culture, and I grew up in one of those traditional cultures, and I remember every day, starting from my kindergarten, then school, then university, at lunchtime, every woman in a canteen where we had our lunch would tell you, soup every day. You must eat your bowl of soup first before you eat anything else. Essential, because the soup is collagen. You're replenishing your collagen in your body. You're replenishing your connective tissue. You're replenishing the structure of your bones, the structure of your muscles, the structure of all your mucous membranes, of all your fascia, everything in your body, which is absolutely essential. And you cannot replenish it by eating purely meat, because meat doesn't have a lot of collagen. Yes, the muscles have also a little skeleton in them made out of collagen, but because a pure muscle can be eaten raw, it's soft enough to eat raw, to chew and to eat raw, or rare or medium rare. You can have a steak rare or medium rare, so you literally cook it a little bit. It means that there's very little collagen in there. You cannot chew collagen without cooking it in water for a long time. So the softer, like a fillet steak, the softer the muscle is, the less collagen you are consuming. And if you have any chronic disease, the worse your situation is, the more serious your disease is, the more collagen you require. And the only way to get it is by boiling a chunk of animal in water with some salt and spices for 3 hours, 4 hours, and then drinking that stock, and then eating all those soft gelatinous tissues around the joint, around the bones, the fascia, the ligaments, the capsules of the organs, and so on. That is why meat stock is essential. And that is why it's essential to make it with gelatinous, tough parts of the animal, of the carcass of the animal, with the feet, with the legs, with the neck, with the skin, with the heads, with all the tissues that you cannot just do 3 minutes on each side, medium rare. You cannot do that. So it's essential to consume those tissues in order to maintain the physical structure of your body that you live in. Okay.
And you know what, I reflected on my whole healing journey, and actually even before I started GAPS diet. And I remember I used to have so many Crohn's flare-ups where basically I was in agony, massive pains, stabbing pains, sometimes as painful that I was fainting because I couldn't bear with it. So I couldn't eat anything. Even the thought of chewing some solid matter, whether it was the meat or forget about vegetables, because even the thought of vegetables would send me to hospital. But I remember, and that's the pre-GAPS story. I remember the only thing what let me survive and calm down that emergency situation was me lying down in bed with a hot water bottle over my abdomen and sipping warm meat stock. So as I've mentioned, in Poland, we do drink meat stock all the time. It's called rosół. And that was the only nourishment and liquid I was able to very slowly get from my digestive system and to calm it down. Sometimes it was taking 24 hours to see improvement. Sometimes it would take me 2 or 3 days to get to the point where, yeah, I'm still in pain, but I don't need to panic about it, or I'm not fainting because it was so painful. So even pre-GAPS, I've seen the miracle of the meat stock, and then obviously I just don't know why I didn't start GAPS diet back then. but I'm seeing it all the time in my clients now, and in the community which I'm running. So meat stock, and sometimes, you know, sometimes you have to drink 5 cups up, sometimes you have to drink 17 cups to get that healing, that deep healing there. But Dr. Natasha, some people who want to embark on this journey to start at no plant gaps, that they keep reading that, let's say, consuming a high protein diet is not very good. So I think there are 2 contexts here which I wanted to talk with you. The first one is that when we consume high protein diet, obviously our body breaks down those proteins into amino acids, and they can be obviously used for building, rebuilding, repairing tissue, producing hormones, enzymes, giving us energy, and all these wonderful things. But any excess of those amino acids could be converted into glucose in the body. So now I suppose the question is, if somebody is following no plant gaps, should they be worried about consuming too much protein, and that our liver will basically start producing too much glucose and will end up with high blood sugar? Should we measure our macros? Should we measure the amount of protein we consume, and should we maybe check our blood sugar on a regular basis?
I have developed a term for my patients and for the GAPS community: too scientific. If you want to lose your way in this world, follow the science. Majority of scientific papers published on anything natural, whether it's medicine, whether it's health, zoology, biology, you know, anything like that, are not worth the paper they're written on. But then there is a whole body of honest research telling us that Western population is not consuming enough protein, and that a whole caboodle of pretty much every chronic disease stems from the fact that people in the West are not eating enough protein. There is a protein starvation in the Western world. And not because of lack of food, but because of propaganda. Because the propaganda that comes from the mainstream nutrition is that protein's bad, that meat is bad, that eggs are bad, fish is bad, live on wheat and sugar, kind of thing, you know, because these things are not mentioned. So when you remove everything they're malign, all you're left with is bread and sugar. Basically.
And cereals for breakfast.
Cereals for breakfast, which are an absolute poison. Nobody should be eating those things. And you know, so many helpings of fruit and vegetable. No, that's all. So it's propaganda. Do not worry about that. Too scientific. The more nature doesn't dissect anything. Mother Nature gave us meat. Meat is not protein. Meat is a complex, complete food which contains everything in it, not just protein. Do not equate meat to protein. That's a lie. That is not true. Meat contains a form of animal starch in it called glycogen. It's more dense than the starch you'll get from potatoes and bread. So meat contains a carbohydrate in it, a complex carbohydrate called glycogen in it. Meat contains fats. Meat contains phospholipids. It contains all vitamins necessary for the human body, much richer, much higher amounts. All the B vitamins are in the animal foods. Plants cannot give you those vitamins. It's only animal foods and the meats that give it to you. And when I say the word meat, I'm not talking about a lean piece of steak, a fillet steak. I'm talking about a chunk of animal, where everything is consumed, nothing is dissected, removed, or thrown away. That is why I recommend to many of my clients, when you buy an animal, you have to speak to the butcher and ask the butcher not to cut it according to the way he's been taught in the Western butchery schools. Because in the Western butchery schools, they are taught to dissect the pure muscle out of that animal, and everything else is removed. You know, and they're very skilled at it, you know, to remove this bit and remove that bit. So much thrown away. Majority of the animal is thrown away. It's unbelievable what's going on in the Western world. No, you just want pure chunks of animal, put into several bags, and given to you. And then at home, you will sort it out yourself. You just put it in a pan, fill it up with water, and boil it. And you will get all the nutrition from it. So meat is not protein. Meat is a complete piece of food that will give your body every nutrient that your body requires, everything in the right proportions. The fat will be there, the carbohydrates will be there, the proteins will be there, amino acids will be there, all vitamins, all minerals, all phospholipids, everything will be there, everything that you need.
And it's so interesting what you've mentioned about that butchers are trained to cut the whole animal in the way that it's, let's say, a lean steak or lean piece of meat, and they cut, let's say, the fat out and throw it away. I do remember when I moved, I used to live in London, and then I moved to the countryside. So I started kind of researching the farm shops and the sources I wanted to buy my food. And I remember I am the queue, and there is gentleman in front of me, and the butcher is basically cutting the fat out and selling him very lean steaks. And all I'm seeing that the butcher is like taking that piece of fat and wants to throw it in the bin on the side. And I said, like, no, can I have this one? I've just jumped on it as if it was pure gold. They both looked at me, so like, yeah, fine. What are you going to do with it? I was like, oh my God, this is this is the most important part.
Absolutely, these are the most nourishing. Everything most nourishing from the animals in the Western world is cut off and removed.
Yeah.
You know, you can create any conspiracy theory just based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so funny because whenever my husband goes and picks up stuff from the farm which I've ordered, they don't call him by his name. They call him, oh, the chicken feed lady husband came. But thank you for reassuring every one of us in terms of, you know, consuming animal-based diet is not going to affect, and kind of, you know, that we don't have to measure macros, that we don't have to check how much of meat we consuming. But obviously, you know, you've also touched on some scientific publications, and some of them, and it's very difficult to kind of say which one are the true science and which one are not a true science. But some of them obviously claim that consuming, I'm just going to circle back to the word protein, that consuming a lot of protein may affect kidney. So would you say we should be ignoring that as well, or what kind of words of wisdom you've got for those publications which cover the protein versus kidney issue?
To analyze whether a scientific study is valid or whether it's just propaganda is extremely difficult and very time consuming. And you have to have special training in order to do that. There are very few people in this world who actually have the right training and who can tell you, by analyzing a scientific study, who can tell you whether you can trust that study or whether it's off into the bin. You know, there are very few people. And I say it's very time consuming. It can take an hour or two, or even sometimes a whole day to analyze one study. Who's got time for that? Who's got training for that? So it's absolutely hopeless to even try. That is why I recommend not to be obsessed with science. Don't pay attention to it. Mother Nature took billions of years to design our bodies. And at the same time, it designed all the food that is suitable for these bodies to thrive. Our science existed only for a few decades, tinkering in its laboratories. What does it know compared to billions of years of that Mother Nature took? And I'm talking about Mother Nature, but for some people, that's God, the creator. There are many names that people use, whatever appeals to you. So nature knows best. Listen to your body. It communicates to you all the time what's right, what's wrong. Your intuition. Listen to your intuition. Many of us are trained from our childhood to ignore our intuition and just follow the logic and the reason, despite the fact that your heart is screaming at you that this doesn't feel good. Your gut feeling is screaming at you that this is not good. Don't do it. And yet we follow and we go ahead and we still do it because the logic, the reason are telling us that, because of this reason and that reason and this reason, that we should continue. And we just run into trouble. We just create grief and suffering for ourselves and everybody else around as a result. Listen to your intuition. Listen to your gut feeling. Listen to your body. Your body communicates to you all the time, and it never lies. Everything it tells you is the truth. And so does the intuition. Everything it tells you. Forget the science. The Western science in particular is funded by commercial corporations. The way it works, we give you this chunk of money. We want you to produce a bunch of studies which come with this conclusion. Precise conclusion is given with the money. And then the scientists concoct a study and manipulate the numbers to come up with that conclusion. That is the vast majority of Western science. If you want to follow that, be prepared for a lot of suffering in your life. So I suggest you don't worry about that. Kidneys are a filter. They filter out a lot of toxins out of the body, a lot of things out of the body. And when your gut is damaged and it's porous and leaky, your food absorbs undigested. All food that you eat absorbs undigested in lumps and bits and pieces. Then the immune system finds these lumps of food in your blood, in your lymph, looks at it, says you're not food, and it tries to deal with it. And it will use all sorts of tools to deal with these lumps of food, which should not be in your blood and should not be in your lymph. And as the immune system attaches different things to those lumps of food, they become even bigger. And when they arrive to the kidney, they block the filter. They settle in the filter and they block the filter. And that causes nephropathy. And that causes other nephritis. That is an inflammation of the kidney. And that usually the chronic situation is called nephropathy. And in that situation, people are recommended not to eat protein, to avoid all protein. The proteins that are impossible for the human beings to digest and which are the most harmful for the human beings all come from plants. Plants have lots of proteins. And all of those proteins are indigestible for the human digestive system. And if the gut wall is damaged, porous and leaky and has big holes in it, these plant proteins absorb undigested. They block the kidney, not the meat, not the eggs, not the dairy, not any of that. They block the kidneys. That is the first thing that must go in any nephropathy situation. Plant proteins. Gluten is the most researched plant protein, and the more we research in gluten, the more we're realizing that nobody can digest it. It damages everybody, even a person who thinks that they are fine, that they can digest it and they're absolutely fine. Even in those persons, there are processes going on which are pathological and they cause chronic disease. It's just that people will not connect their chronic arthritis with bread that they eat, or their migraines, or their memory lapses, or their Alzheimer's disease developing, or their skin problems, or something else that they have, or allergies, or asthma, or whatever else they may have, these people. So everybody finds it difficult to handle gluten. That is what the honest research shows. And that is only one protein that has been researched from grains, from plant matter. There are thousands of other proteins that we haven't even researched yet, majority of them. What you need for your kidneys, you need collagen, lots and lots of collagen. So if you have nephropathy, if you have a kidney problem in particular, what you want to remove is the muscle of the animal. That's what the Western world calls meat, the muscle of the animal. But all the other bits of the animal, you want to gorge on. You want the joints, you want the fat, you want the organs, you want the collagen, as much collagen as possible, because this collagen will heal and seal your gut lining. It will close all those holes in your gut lining. So all your food will start digesting properly before it absorbs. And once these undigested bits of food stop appearing in your blood and in your lymph, the immune system will calm down and stop attacking them. So because the enemy will be gone, and your filter will clean itself up. Kidneys, liver, their filters. So the kidneys will clean themselves up. They clean themselves up all the time, and your nephropathy will be gone. So don't worry about protein. That is true scientific. Protein doesn't exist in, this term. Nature didn't give us protein or carbohydrate or whatever. That's scientific. That's coming from the Western science. Meat is not protein alone, but it's the muscle that is very rich in the very proteins that are difficult to digest and that get through the damaged, leaky, porous gut lining. You want lots of collagen. If you have a nephropathy, you want lots of meat stock. And then you start blending into it the skin of the pig, the skin of the chicken, the skin of the turkey, and all the other gelatinous bits of these animals which have a lot of collagen in them. And that will allow your gut lining to seal itself. So food will digest properly before it absorbs. And once that happens, your kidneys will clean up and they will recover.
And thank you for sharing that, Dr. Natasha. I think I'm going to print out and frame meat is not protein, and I will just be sharing that everywhere. But I just wanted to circle back to what you said about the science and that people should ignore reading that's research. And I know that, even from my personal experience, when we are very toxic, we've got lots of brain fog, our cognitive issue is impaired, and it's getting very, very overwhelming. So I think reading those things is the only thing what we've got control over, because we want to find answers. So what I wanted to say to those people, because I've been there as well, I've been just gorging on everything, on all the publication, just trying to find the answer, and it caused me more stress, it caused me more pain and frustration, and I've lost so much time. What I would advise to all the listeners, just follow those people who to share real science, to share the truth. What you need to binge watch is all the videos with Dr. Natasha. What you need to do is to read her books, because that's where the real truth is. And if you're now listening to us and thinking, but I don't trust my intuition, I don't even know if I have intuition, just keep drinking that meat stock, because intuition will come. I promise you, it will come. It came for me. It took me a few months to realize it, but the moment I healed and sealed my gut, my brain went. I became so intuitive with everything what I do, the food, the decision I'm making, the life I'm leading. So I still read the scientific publications from time to time, but what I usually do, because I actually used to work for clinical trial organization. I used on a project for 2 years with them, and I had privilege to work with wonderful professors and doctors who taught me how to read that publication and how to find the things which differentiate from a true science and a fake science. And the first thing was, is that publication sponsored? Whether it's a big pharma, big food, big tech, or whatever big company, then you start asking questions like what interest they've got to prove to you that something is right or wrong. And the second one, how the questions were designed, formulated, because you can ask the question the way that the person is going to answer what you really want to hear. So if you still want to read the publications and you are confused and concerned, you can post that question in my Facebook group. I'm happy to have a look at that publication. And typically you get the same answer. Listen to Dr. Natasha. This is not true science.